So I have to say, when I open up Facebook or Instagram, I see this brand all the time, and I haven't been able to take a look at one of their watches until today. But I think what's interesting here is going to be, what the value looks like from what looks like a micro brand, especially out of America, when it's stacked up against its luxury competitors and what you can really get for the money. Now, there's going to be a few things I don't like about this watch, but there's also a lot of things I do like. Quick disclaimer, this video is sponsored by Vaer. The brand didn't get to preview this script or get any influence on my conclusions or any of my thought process. They don't get to review the video before I post it or make any edits to this video. I am going to have both positives and negatives. They don't get a say in either version of those things, but it is important to note. Now let's go over the basics. Vaer built its name on affordable quartz field watches that are assembled in the US. Now this here is the A5 Tactical Field. It shifts that focus to an automatic movement and American assembly. Now here we're looking at a 40mm version that has the Japanese Miyota 9015 inside it. It still retains the same vintage military aesthetic. It still has the same 40mm case. You can see the other specs, 48mm lug to lug, around 10 to 11mm in thickness, and it has 100-meter water resistance. Now the case and design of this watch, it uses 316L stainless steel, which is the same as just about everyone else. It doesn't have drilled lugs here. It has a nice size. It's got these curved lugs on here. It has both polished and brushed surfaces, but once it has this black DLC coating on it, you basically lose the ability to see differences in finishing, at least for the most part. On the Vaer here, you do not get a micro adjust clasp. I don't think you'd expect it at this price point, but it doesn't have a micro adjust clasp. You do have 4 positions of adjustment. If you want to fine tune your fit, you certainly can. And they are screw-in links rather than pin links, which I really like. It is a dual button push deployant, and you do have a safety lock clasp over here as well. General specs mean that it's going to be your standard field watch. It's going to be sapphire crystal on the top, double domed. You've got a see-through case back on the back here as well, which that combined with this coating mean that movement is even more visible than it otherwise would be. Like, it stands out big time, which I think is nice, especially for people that are going to buy this watch. And this may be one of, if not the first automatic watch that they buy. I think that what they do here really well is they really embrace the military aesthetic. It looks like what you get from Hamilton, for example, with a khaki field automatic, but you're going to be getting it from an American company, and you're going to be getting some of those aesthetics that add in lume and DLC that you're not going to find with something like a Hamilton. Now you have also here an included bracelet on this version. You can see all the pricing for the different way that they break these out. It did come also with this rubber strap. You can buy it either way, with the rubber strap or with the metal bracelet. I always recommend to everyone to buy it with a metal bracelet because you should, and then go buy the strap or a different strap later if you want to. The bracelet does feature quick release spring bars on here as well. So if you do decide you want to swap it onto something else, it's relatively simple to do. You can see I just snapped that off, no problem. Pretty simple. And that is something that's really nice on modern watches. They all have these quick release spring bars. Now, while they market this as a tactical field watch, I think the design is very much more like a pilot's watch with these larger numerals and luminous markers. I think it could be seen as a field watch, but it definitely these days looks more like a pilot watch. This is powered by the Miyota 9015, as I mentioned earlier, 28,800 vibrations per hour, 40-hour power reserve, hacking seconds. It does have a date indicator on here as well. Relatively thin, so it means that it's going to hug your wrist pretty well once it's actually put on. It's a good size. I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist, and I think that it wears quite nicely. It looks like it fits me like a glove. And one of the benefits of it being black is that it looks, I think, even better on the wrist and doesn't look too large. Generally, what I was worried about with a watch like this is that the dial was going to be too big and it was going to look just oversized, but you don't have that problem whatsoever. This reminds me a lot of Hamiltons that I've owned and also my IWC Mark 20 that I have here. Now, we have to keep in mind this watch right here is $5,000. The Vaer here is closer to $600. So huge difference in price. And obviously the aesthetic is very, very, very similar. You're not going to be getting 10 times the value with something like an IWC. And the Vaer here points that out. It does have an anti-reflective coating on it, so when you hold it slightly off axis, you do start to notice this blue hue on here because that's the coating that's on top of the glass. Nice feature spec. I think that the action on here is typically what you get out of Miyota, which means that the winding is relatively fine. I mean, for an automatic movement at this price point, I think it's great. You're not going to get a super smooth feeling of manually winding it. You do get a screw down crown and a bunch of literature from Vaer on water resistance with watches, which I appreciate. But in general, what you're getting here is a fantastic package for the price point now with an automatic movement in it. Now, for real world use, the best part about a watch like this has to be the lume. You have so much blacked out with the lume. This is designed to be something that you wear, and when it comes nighttime, the watch glows on its numerals, and that, I think, is the biggest enjoyment of a watch like this. The downside to that is it's going to make all these markers slightly green, so you're not going to have white markers like you would with something like the Mark 20 here. These are non-lumed, these are lumed. Obviously, the tone and color is going to be different between the two. I think if you're looking for something tactical, the lume here adds a functionality that is going to be very appealing to most people like that. I think the American assembly is something that's also really appealing to most people. The fact that the whole thing's DLC coded, including the bracelet, is an aesthetic that is definitely, if that's your preference to go for black DLC coded things, then this is kind of, you know, I mean, it's pretty great for what it is, and you're definitely going to get an aesthetic that typically you're only going to find again when you're looking at full ceramic watches, which are really expensive. So I think a full blacked out watch like this is definitely a nice to have, especially if this is the sort of aesthetic that you want in your watch. Compared to Hamilton's Khaki Mechanical or the Seiko 5 models, the Vaer is pricier, but often it has some better specs and it has domestic assembly. I think that the big thing here is going to be whether or not you think it's worth the supporting an American micro brand. It's up to you. For me, I would say yes. I own a manufacturing company here in the United States. We're relatively small time operation. I like to support other American made brands. That's why when they reached out, I was more than happy to work with them because that's something that I like doing. A few details on this Vaer that I really like. The date window here is in black, which is really nice because it color matches. It blends in a little bit as well. One of the downsides to having a date on here, especially for a movement that's a little small for the case size, is that the date isn't all the way over where the 3 is, right? Because the movement is too small for that date window to actually be further over to the right. And so the downside to that is you have both the 3 and the date. I much prefer when the 3 is missing and the date window is all the way over, but this is what happens when you have the restrictions of you're trying to find a movement that's at a good price point to be able to offer this at the price that Vaer's offering it. The downside there is going to be that the movement's going to be slightly too small for a 40 millimeter case, and so you end up with the date inset on the dial. This minute track on the exterior also is really nice to have. It makes reading the time a lot faster. Again, personal preference there as well. Now, as I said before, these syringe hands have to be some of my favorite. I had a Hamilton once upon a time that had these syringe hands and a Zinn 104, and these syringe hands were fantastic. They're super legible and they hold lume. So it's a twofer. I really like the hand style that they chose on this watch. I like the fact that it's got good water resistance and it's at a good price, and it features a movement in there that while some people dislike Miyota movements, I am perfectly fine with them. They serve a great purpose and they're at a great price. The downsides to a Miyota movement is typically you're not going to get the premium accuracy. You wouldn't expect that at this price point, but you're not going to get super chronometer level accuracy out of a Miyota movement all the time. You can regulate them. If you look closely, you can see a plus and a minus. You can move one of these 2 levers here, and that helps regulate it so that it is more accurate. Takes a little bit of time. If you're getting into this stuff, you can obviously practice that. I can make a second video to follow up on how to regulate a watch if I haven't already made it yet. But the Miyota does only wind in one direction with the rotor, which means when you listen to it, I don't know if you could pick that up, but you can hear the rotor every so often when you put it on, when you move it, because it only winds in one direction, meaning the other direction, it doesn't have any resistance. It winds freely or rotates freely. And so sometimes that bearing or the rotor on the bearing, you can hear audibly and you can feel it a little bit through your wrist. Again, that's just a downside for all unidirectional winding rotors. So you just need to know that as you go into buying it. So to wrap up the whole thing, I think the Vaer offers great customer experience, at least on the front end. From what I've seen, their customer service response has been good. I looked at different forums. I think people have good experience with them. I think the watch itself offers a great aesthetic at a good price. I think there's kind of a hole where like Swiss-made watches are pushing more $800 to $1,000 these days. In this like $500 to $600 price segment that I originally started buying watches in is ripe for a brand like Vaer to push into. And I think they're definitely doing that with their Ameriquartz and their quartz watches. And they're also doing that here with an automatic version. And I commend them for that. Thank you, Vaer, for sending this out. If you guys are interested in them, you can find a link to this watch down below. What are your guys' thoughts on Vaer, on this watch itself? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.